nice.
All right, wait a minute. It's still 6:29.
Really?
It's amazing how much you can get done in a few seconds. I figured that out on radio, like, oh, wow, it hasn't done, it's still, there we go. We set, Patrick?
We're good.
All right, it is 6:30. We're now going to call our meeting to order, and we have company tonight. And with us tonight is Patrick Knight, Mike Roth, Ben Peters, Michael Gary, myself, and with us virtual we have Craig Schulte, Kim Dunsmore, and City Attorney Robert Kringle, and that's it, right?
That is it.
Okay, very good, along with our guests. So with that, we'll open the open forum. Is anyone here that would like to speak during the open forum? Or everyone is on the agenda in some way, shape, or form?
Is this with regard to anything?
Anything? Yeah.
Because you don't get to speak after you close the...
Yeah. This is the time.
Not you,
Well,
Joyce.
I guess
Come
I'm
on, Joyce. Just, yeah, grab that toward you, wherever you want to.
I'm Joyce Haskree. I live in the city of Grand Marais. And I'm here, I'm not opposed to any of these projects, but I, as a city taxpayer and a county taxpayer, I don't want to see a precedent set here. I know the county has approved these abatements. That means that I and many taxpayers here are going to have to pay more taxes. It isn't going to do anything for our levy. And I just do not believe the city should get involved with tax abatements. Like I said, I'm not opposed. The city has already given, what, a $600,000 property that we got no money for the switchback up here. And now the one up here, the Heights project, I mean, I believe in the housing. I don't know what the rents would be, what we're talking about here. I mean, has that been put forth? And I'd like to know how much are the taxpayers losing a year with not getting granting a tax abatement that we don't collect for revenues that helps the levy for everybody. The county, we're already not getting the county. And as for the proposed development, maybe I don't know what's going on with the city property up where the public utilities are right now. If I remember correctly, if that wasn't going to be used for public utility offices and city offices, liquor store, whatever, I seem to remember that that was supposed to be sold to whomever, but they paid the money, and that might help with the new buildings that we're going to see here, capital improvements. We've got a liquor store we're going to put in, redo all this. That's a lot of money. So, like I say, I don't want to set a precedent, the city to set a precedent. And I'm not opposed to these housing projects. I know we need housing, but that's my take on it.
Thanks,
All right,
Joyce.
thank you. All right, anyone else for, yes?
Yes, my name's Bruce McVitie. I live in Hovland, so in the county, but not in the city. I am a limited partner in the funding development for the Heights project, as well as the project that was finished downtown here, the Birch Park. So I'm here in support of it. So if you kind of think back a few years where we had fires in the community, when we lost business space, and the group was formed, we purchased a home here in 2018, and it was just a few years past that, then we moved up here in 22, that we lost a major retail spaces, we lost a restaurant, and so this group, the general partners came together and now have 41 people, local, most of them all in the county or in the city, that are looking to put $2.2 million into this project, so it's 25% investment. And the two goals that was set out was to honor that building of retail space, but also to look at this paramount need for worker housing and affordable housing. And those were always the focus of this work, and I really commend our general partners for coming to this plan that's being presented, the heights, and then looking for a way to make it pencil so that 50% of the of these apartments will be offered at 80% of median income, if I think that's the right terms for it. So, so there'll be a subsidized for 16 of the 32 units. So if you think historically, this housing problem's been going on probably 40 years or longer, and nothing's been built. And here we have 41 people in town that have put money into a fund. There's much better ways to make money than this, and this group is really focused on the net benefits to the society by starting to fill this housing gap. And I think it's been said before, the reason that these types of things aren't built is because it's so expensive to build up here that you can't build for income subsidies without some sort of help. And so I encourage you, I think, to give it a fair hearing. This is a shovel-ready project by the building with the pre-constructed framing that it would be occupied, if everything goes to plan, by Christmas, which is pretty amazing. There's never been something built of this magnitude here, and this problem's been long-standing. Here we have a great opportunity, so hope we get a fair hearing on it. So
Thank you.
That's all
Thank
I
you.
have.
All right, anyone else for open forum?
Where's your name tag? I don't know who you are now.
I have it here.
Oh,
Thanks for reminding
oh,
me.
yeah.
My name is Gary Latz. I live on Birch Drive. Housing is the #1 issue in the county. Everyone agrees that it's a problem that needs multiple solutions. Mayor, you said that yourself 2 weeks ago in our meeting. You stressed how important it was, and everyone can agree that that's an issue. Our project, The Heights, will be the largest housing project ever in Cook County. The project targets potential new employees to Cook County who otherwise would not find an acceptable housing solution. So this is a solution for many of our businesses. A secondary target is seniors who wish to sell their home, their single-family home, and downsize, and that creates a ghost market. It creates more houses on the market for other people to buy. So we keep recycling our housing through different people. As Bruce said, we can complete this project in 2024. We will be the first of, Jason and HRA and the EDA are working on multiple possible projects. We will be the first across the finish line. And with half of the units offered at rates that are more affordable to those earning 80% of the average median income, really creates two target markets, a market rate and a subsidized rate. The buildings will offer features such as underground parking, solar panels, 9-foot ceilings, and all sorts of a host of other amenities that are going to make this a very desirable place to live. The $8.1 million investment is an economic stimulus for the city of Grand Marais. As Bruce said, 41 different people have joined our limited partnership. All of those people are either residents of the city, the county, or they grew up here, or they come here, they're seasonal people, or they have strong ties to the North Shore that they have developed over many years. So you've got people that are vested in making this thing work. Our project also includes loans from the revolving loan fund and Northland Foundation. And I cite those because they are interested in supporting us because they know they can be a help to the housing problem by helping with the financing. This also includes $750,000 in IRRR grants that would otherwise not flow to the city and county, but for your participation in this program. This is really the linchpin of everything. Without that $750,000, we can't make the program go. Projects of this magnitude need some sort of support to be financially feasible. And that's not just here in Grand Marais and Cook County. This is true all across the country. These projects just can't get built without some sort of public support. So the challenge for the city is to find an appropriate and an efficient way to provide public support for projects such as these. Each project has its own unique set of needs and solutions. Tax abatement is a logical solution for this particular situation. For example, we are not asking for free land. We bought the land already. Now, if you guys want to buy the land back from us and sell it to us, that would work too. But that's not a reasonable solution for where we're at now. So think of this, tax abatements is just a different tool to accomplish the same goal. And it's the appropriate tool for us, again, because we're not asking for land. In fact, this is our only request of the city for direct financial assistance. All of the other financing is through sources that are independent of the city. Tax abatement is a limited time assistance after which the city will receive the full tax revenue. So again, we urge you to consider this as a fantastic project that will go towards helping solve our housing problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our
let
consent.
Tom speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yep.
Good evening. I'm Tom Morris. I live up the hill and am still in Plaid. I think I've been in Plaid every time I've come to talk about housing with you all. But I live outside the city limits, and I think it's important to clarify that I have no financial stake. I'm not one of the investors in this project. I'm just a citizen who's concerned about housing. Having heard many of my friends and neighbors and coworkers move multiple times trying to make it work, having friends move away from the county because they can't figure it out. So a lot of personal stories I've been hearing from people, and it makes me passionate about this opportunity. You know, there are many projects in development, and this one is especially exciting to me because it offers the highest number of affordable units. I think the Sawtooth Flats project is less than half as many affordable units, or marked as affordable units, whereas this one has 16. 18 units. That's half of the total number of units that would be held at those kind of subsidized rates. And that's why I worked with Jason to draft an interview on Boreal that helped to explain what tax abatement is. I think I shared that with all of you and through Mike earlier today. But I think, first of all, you know, at the last meeting, I think Ben asked, like, well, I want to check this project out, and I hope you've done the math on it, because the return for the city, I think, is just as exciting as the return for the investors. You know, what do we get out of this? Well, 18 units of affordable housing, 36 units of total housing that help to address the overall shortage. The development of a long vacant piece of land that over the next 25 years could generate more than $700,000 in new property tax revenue for the city, the county, the schools, the hospital, all of our taxing districts. It's 15 years where you receive no taxes, but then there's a significant income stream that gets added for the city and for the county after that shouldn't be ignored. If this project doesn't go through, it's very likely that piece of land sits for quite a while before there's anything else developed on it. Probably a minimum of, 2 to 3 years, even if the real estate fund turned around and sold it. So those are lost tax revenues too, that should be considered, because there's an opportunity cost here. Another way to think about it is you're being asked for an abatement of up to $375,000. That works out to about 4% of the project cost. You're subsidizing roughly 1.5 out of the 36 units. That's a pretty good return as well. Or another way to think of it is, you know, that you have this opportunity to create so many more jobs in the community as well, because people will be working on this project. You know, they're working with Dynamic Homes that's already working in the community on the Crosby Bakery and has a strong track record. I think Joyce brought up a great point. How much are the taxpayers on the hook for? It's important to remember that with the tax abatement, these are kind of a different way of having costs come through. There's the marginal costs of providing more city services and things like that as we add more residents. But for the most part, I think it's good for people to remember that property taxes increase when the city or county budget increases, and not when another property gets developed. Often when another property gets developed, like the development downtown, that long-term income stream helps to offset their growing property taxes and the services in the city. And finally, I think this project is a great one because, as Craig asked at the last meeting, you know, are we opening Pandora's box? Where does this lead? You know, are we going to end up with a line of people out the door asking for tax abatements? I think in Mike's document today, he said the city could support something like 8 tax abatements of this size. I think the city should absolutely develop a policy about how to do this fairly, but approving this agreement tonight, which is really just an agreement to talk about an agreement, sets a really great precedent and a great threshold for other projects to try and meet. Okay, you want a tax abatement? 50% of the units have to be affordable. You want a tax abatement? You have to leverage our funding 4 to 1. You have to get the county on board. You have to get another grant to come in. You have to make this work for everybody. You could use it as opportunities to say that, you know, there's a minimum number of units that have to be developed to be considered for a tax abatement. 36 units, as Gary, I think, said, that's one of the largest apartment buildings being built in Cook County history. All of these create a great precedent for you to try to put onto other projects, and I don't think hamstrings the city in any way or sets you up to, you know, have an expectation that you're going to approve every abatement request that comes before you. And in fact, by creating that policy, you know, you could open Pandora's box by making a really clear statement like, if you want to build housing in this community, this is what's on the table. The city's willing to work with you. We can be a leader in solving this problem. So I hope the city will give it serious consideration. I think there's a lot of people that have written in to support this idea and this concept, and look forward to hearing more about the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. I think so.
All right, and with that said, we have a policy on open forum of 10 minutes per subject, which we have well exceeded this evening. And because we have all of our experts in the room this evening, we will have ample opportunity to continue to ask questions, and we probably will. So I hope you'll respect that, and now we're going to move on and go to our consent agenda. We have potentially one addition to the consent agenda, and that is a later bill pay for the MPCA. And would anyone like to make a motion to add that to the consent agenda?
I would make that motion. Second.
All right. Any further discussion, questions on bills or meeting minutes, anything? Craig, do you have anything? No. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion then to approve the consent agenda with that addition?
I would make that motion.
And I will second that motion.
Right, and we're again on to roll call, and I remember that tonight. So we'll start with you, Ben.
Aye.
Aye.
Michael, Craig.
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good. That moves that right along. And next up is the Violence Prevention Center.
Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Lindsay Gow. I'm the director of the Violence Prevention Center. I'm here to propose the amount of $10,000 from the public safety aid funds that were allocated to the city of Grand Marais from the state of Minnesota. The public safety aid funds aim to bolster public safety through a variety of means, including victim services, which is the very essence of the VPC's mission. The VPC has been a cornerstone of public safety in our community for over 37 years. Working in partnership with local law enforcement, North Shore Health, Sawtooth Mountain Clinic, the County Attorney's Office, Probation, Cook County Public Health and Human Services, and Grand Portage Human Services to keep our community safe. Public safety is not only about protecting our community from harm, but also preventing harm. It is about holding those who harm accountable, saving lives, and supporting victims of harm. The VPC and other agencies like ours coordinate with the criminal justice system to ensure the safety of victims of intimate partner abuse, family violence, child physical and sexual abuse, elder abuse, teen dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and harassment. But when it comes to conversations about and funding for public safety, advocacy organizations are often left behind. I just want to give an example of how the VPC works with victims of works with clients that we work with. I'm going to specifically just kind of give us an example of maybe working with a victim of sexual assault and how this relates to public safety. So, for example, if we're working with a victim of sexual assault, we would sit in the room with the victim as they receive a sexual assault forensic exam at our local hospital and work with the medical staff to support the victim during this process. We would sit with them through the law enforcement interview with our local sheriff's department. We would help the victim safety plan, access therapy and financial support, provide emergency short-term safe lodging, transportation to follow-up medical appointments, and interventions with their employers and landlord if the trauma of this event affects their housing or employment. We would help them apply for a protection order, working with the court to submit the application and attend court hearings regarding the protection order. We would also possibly work with law enforcement to ensure the service of that order if that is needed. We would work with the victim witness coordinator at the county attorney's office to attend court proceedings, including a trial if there was one. All of this while providing emotional support for the victim as well as their friends and family. Our community's need for our services has increased significantly over the past 5 years. In 2018, we served 140 clients with about 197 points of contacts per those clients. And in 2023, we served 204 clients with 969 points of contact with those services. This comes at a time when our field has faced significant underfunding for both the state and federal governments, pushing domestic and sexual violence organizations to the precipice of crisis in the state of Minnesota. We are asking our city leaders to deliberate on allocating these funds to the VPC to help fund personnel costs and victim assistance services. The VPC is a pillar of public safety efforts in our community, and hundreds of individuals and families would be at risk if the VP's services diminished. Allocating a portion of these funds to the VPC would ensure our mission to provide safety and support for victims of violence. Investing in the VPC aligns perfectly with these funding directives, making the direct impact on safety and well-being of our community members. I know that I submitted a much longer proposal that I hope you all had an opportunity to look over. I just kind of wanted to abbreviate some things from it and highlight.
It's in our full, I'm looking at it right now, it's in our
Great.
full packet.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then just for transparency sakes, I would also like to inform the city council that I have also submitted a proposal for the county public safety aid funds as well that were given to the county by the state.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
You had a question face there for a minute, Mayor. What was that?
Oh, yeah, repeat your last sentence again, or maybe I'm just going to ask.
Yeah.
I'll just reframe this because then maybe I'm missing something here. I thought your request was and is just aligned back to the one-time funding that cities were given from the state.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So just checking
Yep,
on-
just the one-time funding.
Yeah,
Yes. correct.
okay.
Okay.
Because that's ballpark 58,000 that we were given. And we've
Correct.
talked about this throughout the year, and the funding didn't come in until the very end of this, that we actually were given the dollars.
Yep.
And in conversing about this right from the get-go, when we became aware of this, we were looking at most of that funding for the fire department and various things. You'll remember some of the requests that
Yeah.
they had earlier. So, and the Violence Prevention Center did send a letter a while ago, and we're just kind of getting it all online now. So, just to make sure everyone's up to speed on that.
Got it. So Lindsay, your request is for 10,000. Is that sufficient?
Probably not, no, but that's
No.
what we're asking for. We also
Okay.
understand that these, we are work in partnership with so many entities, both, throughout the county, that we understand they need these funds as well, too.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And I guess my purpose in that is just saying like, yeah, it's a help, but it's not like we're lifting it all.
Right, and we are also asking funds from the county, too.
And just the one time only came to cities, the extra dollars that didn't go to the counties at that level, just
Yeah.
so you know the difference. So,
I would put forth the motion to approve the Violence Prevention Center's request for $10,000.
I
Okay.
would second that.
all right, any further discussion? Craig, did you have any thoughts or comments? No. Okay.
No, I did not.
All right, thank you. Okay, we didn't, then I guess we're second on that then, and,
Roll call.
roll call.
Rolling.
I'm gonna head the other direction. Craig?
Aye.
Michael?
Thank you. Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bet.
thanks you.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, and now is, we're on to the next step of the Planning Commission's variance for the Heights project. Well, okay, you're sitting there.
I'll have to recuse myself from this
And
fun.
that means, Ben, you're going to talk about this.
Yeah. So, the Cook County Real Estate Fund came before the Planning Zoning Commission to talk about a height variance request. They, for a number of reasons, the limitations in the zone of 35 feet was insufficient for their building design. It was twofold. One was they really want to have a underground parking, which I think everybody saw value in. It also eliminated the need for additional parking, or at least as much additional parking as surface parking, which in turn does a lot for water management, stormwater stuff, but also it frees up the back of that lot for another potential development. And so we liked all of that. The impact seemed minimal from a height perspective. The bulk of the variance, it was actually 45 feet, right, on the back corner.
That's the lower one though, right?
On the high,
On the,
yeah,
the
Yeah.
way that the,
yeah.
Okay. Because of that,
East,
Southeast.
the east
Yeah.
and the north-south end of the building.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then I think there was close to the 35 feet on
the short
on
end.
the short end. So
Is
the
that the way
average
to
is
look at it?
40, and was the request. So, did I hit most of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the reason for the variance is partially because of the slope of the land, the fact that it's all bedrock on that site. You have to excavate that bedrock. But, putting underground parking in just makes so much sense in terms of the, attraction for the property, the reduction in the surface parking, and reduction in the surface water runoff that would have to be managed otherwise and directed somewhere, which, we're working with an engineer to do that, and we will for whatever we create for surface parking, but we still have to create surface parking to address the additional needs. There's 1.5 parking spaces required per unit, so I think that's 51 parking spaces, and 25 would be under the building, so 26 spaces above ground. Still have to put a portion of the property into, impervious surface, managed runoff.
Craig, did you have any questions?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I looked at the map, I see the lay of the building. So what is the overall height then? I mean, you gave a variance, but was there a specific amount of feet?
It's 40 feet.
It's 40, so that's what's our height restriction now, 36?
35, so it's a 5-foot variance.
35. Oh, that's 5-foot variance, okay. Okay.
The city's definition takes the lowest elevation
Right.
portion to the highest, the greatest elevation to the least elevation and averages that out. And it's 35 feet on the east or west elevation, 45 feet on that east elevation, comes up with 40 foot.
Okay.
I do have one question that's nothing to do with the variance at all.
Ask it.
Well, let's go.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe somebody has an answer.
So I'm making an assumption that the entrance and exit will still be toward the top, like closer to the harbor light of your main entrance, or are you going to put in
The
something?
access driveway entrance?
Yeah,
We're retaining the existing driveway entrance. Is likely going to be widened out towards the west to create greater width and possibly to reduce the slope coming across the sidewalk and out to the highway. We've also been working with Cassidy Gekas at Up Yonder to look at trying to make that a shared driveway for him and the trucks that have a problem coming down that steep exit out of his property. And he's all supportive of that. We think that we can be good neighbors on that side. We're also trying to be good neighbors on the other side where there's some encroachments that have existed. We're working out an arrangement with the Blue Moose owners to address those encroachments. So I think we've got a good relationship with our neighbors. We've been in contact with the Christiansons who own the residence behind there. They're supportive of the project and have been kept in the loop all the way along through this process.
so the reason I asked, which is somewhat similar to the conversations that they had around Switchback, is that increase of in and out traffic, which obviously the harbor light's been there forever, but that's usually a nighttime increase, which is anything smaller. But the only reason I kind of ask is you're just a little bit farther down, you're coming over the top of that hill and you're not going to always, especially if you're going to head down or coming up, any kind of crossover direction, it's a little bit harder to see if someone's coming or going or pulling out. I'm just wondering, does that mean you work a little bit with MnDOT or, maybe is that a longer, pull-out lane? I don't know what you do traffic-wise, but just a little consideration
We've
for
already had
that.
preliminary conversations with MnDOT regarding that. There's not a requirement to add to the turnoff lane for the westbound traffic lane that already exists. Maybe there's something for the eastbound. Again, we haven't had those conversations specifically because we don't have a plan yet. I mean, we're kind of step by step moving this along, but we've been, our engineer's been in contact with MnDOT and is well aware of our concept, and they're very supportive of combining that driveway, the possibility of eliminating that access coming out of the harbor light or Up Yonder property.
Yeah, that was really that was my question. Yeah. All right, anybody else, or we're all right? Would anyone like to make a motion in support of Resolution 2024-06? Oh, that's right.
I'm out.
I don't know why I'm looking at you.
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2024-06.
Anyone like to second that?
Guess I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of Resolution 2024-06?
Roll call.
Ben?
Aye.
Oh my gosh. Craig?
Aye.
Myself, aye. And there we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. You know, Ben, I was thinking though, we should probably talk about heights going forward, you know, because I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty clear downtown, but I think when we're out of that, we've got to think about, because I don't have a clear answer from
About how it's arrived.
like,
and
how did we get to
why-
that?
Yeah.
And why are we doing that?
Yeah, and I think it was brought up like a year ago, wasn't like, it was, I think maybe Tracy, I think maybe you had said, hey, some things the planning commission should chew on, right?
Yeah, we had
About
we had
filling
a
in
laundry
property
list of
lists.
things.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And I wasn't at that follow-up
Yeah.
planning
I don't-
and zoning, but
But anyway, we should come back around to that.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think the thought in mind was knowing that not even these housing projects, but just rebuilding around in the downtown main area, there would be things, and we needed to address, which you guys did.
Yeah, no, I feel secure in what we have here. I was just thinking like outside of.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
now there's more and more possibilities. Okay, well, thank
Well,
you.
that's I see what you're saying. So as far as like taking a look at the zone in general and saying.
Yeah, the
what
different
are the
zones and
heights
what
that
are
we
our
should be-
heights. and-
Okay, yeah.
I mean, the
okay.
downtown one makes sense.
Okay.
I'm thinking outside of that, it's like, oh yeah, we've got this rule. What is this rule?
Yeah, no, I think that that's a valid conversation, like,
Yeah.
because it seems like we've heard multiple times that getting out of the ground is the expensive part, and it's going out is costly, going this way is, you know, a little more
cost-effective.
affordable,
Yep.
right? So.
Okay, planning and zoning team.
Okay, sorry.
You're
Okay.
on it. Okay,
Moving on.
next up, we're going to have a discussion that now can include Michael on housing tax abatement, along with a resolution that will accompany that discussion. And so,
All right.
let's see, that's page, how did I go beyond? 40. Maybe the best way to, so Mike created, so the point of this is to think about tax abatement in very general terms, not to the particular project put before us this evening, prior. And also really to put together a policy. What's shared in the packet is the county's policy. And I think all of us, it sounds like from conversation, have looked at multiple cities' tax abatement policies in the last few days. We had some months ago a presentation from Jason Hale, HRA, on TIF and tax abatements. And of course, the state of Minnesota and the League of Minnesota all have cheat sheets for us to look at that are very factual and ready to roll on that. But policy gets beyond just the exact how-tos by state statute, which most of this is very much controlled by that, and sort of customizes it. How do you make decisions, which really gets back to planning and zoning for a lot of it. Did you want to have some things you wanted to kind of start off with, Mike, to kind of point out? Did you want to?
Let's just quick review the authority first of all, because whether or not you're interested in this, there's a limit on what we can offer. And that limit is around $300,000 annually. Our current levy is $1,100,000, so we have the ability to abate almost a third of our current levy. Clearly, that's not what we're talking about doing here. So if we were going, and we've used some of that authority, that's the other important piece, because we used abatement as one of the financing tools
Oh, right.
to finance this project. So a big chunk of it's been used up, but there's a little more than $200,000 left, or about $25,000 annual cost abatements, which is what $375,000 over 15 years averages out to be. So you can do your own thought process about how's it realistic to get 8 more like this in the door or not. I'm not saying we can afford 8. I'm saying the authority supports us doing 8. If the You know, the way to think about the tax abatement theory is complicated because, of course, a new project creates its own unique set of costs for the city to work with. It's never free, even on a perfect infill. There are always going to be more services that we're providing, so there's some cost to us, always. But there are a lot of factors that can make that less of an impact. If there's not new infrastructure to deal with, it's a much less of an impact. If there's not a lot of new services required, it's much less of an impact. There will be an impact for an apartment building with 36 units. So let's just be honest about that. What you're talking about here is a tool that we haven't used before to try and address a problem that we're not satisfied is solved yet. So I think it's okay to talk about it as a subsidy where we are putting our funds towards this project. And then whether it's TIF or tax abatement or free land or all the other things that we already talked about tonight, in my mind, they're kind of all the same. It's just accounting and which one is easier. So then the idea of a policy in my mind is not necessarily we need to have a three-pager with everything buttoned up with all the statutory requirements in it. We just need to be able to explain ourselves as to why we would support one project over another. That's what a policy is in my mind. What are we trying to support with our subsidy? What do we want to create in terms of an outcome with our subsidy? What do we prioritize that we're saying we're willing to finally do this thing that we haven't done before by creating a subsidy? And I thought some of the factors worth considering are, just from our perspective, first of all, how much of our authority are we actually willing to use? All of it, or just some portion of it? How much of anybody's property tax bill are you willing to abate, and for how long? All of it, all of the new costs to it, or some percentage of it to try and recognize the new services that are happening? Is there any specific project-related goals? And you heard some great suggestions already tonight, too. The number of units is a great one. That it's housing at all is a great one, that we're only talking about housing. Is there a location where you want this to be, where you do abatement, but another location where you wouldn't do abatement? Is there something about the existing condition of the property that makes this more important, where you're seeing it as a significant improvement? You could look at that as an increase in value. I also love the idea of leveraging, and for instance, is the county going to be included? You know, you're only in if they're in, sort of thing. But also, who else's money is being leveraged by your investment is a great one. And I think if we have a few policy statements around those items that you can explain yourself as to why you'd say yes or no to this project, then you're ready to also talk about that with the next project that'll have its own circumstances. And it won't be Pandora's box as much as it'll be we're finally prepared to have a good conversation about this.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to step this back for a moment, just the general way this conversation is going, how much do we have to divide this conversation right now between just basic policy and any reference to the particular Heights project so that Michael can continue the conversation?
I think as long as we're hypothetical in all of our representations when we're talking about this policy, that Michael can continue to participate. What we're really doing when we're talking at the policy level is saying these are the things we would apply to anyone who asked.
Yeah.
And in that case, there isn't a conflict that he has to deal with.
Just because I realized in your memo you kind of put direct numbers and references to that project, and yet we really just want to talk about this as a general topic.
Even
We
when
could
we
just say
do switch
housing.
over and start talking specifically about their request, I still think there's a lot more detail that we need in terms of specific numbers. So these feel pretty general to me anyway, and useful as a thought exercise about abatement questions.
Well, our nice city attorney is sitting here, and so at any moment, he can raise the red flag if he feels so.
Indeed.
Yeah, it could red card me. It could happen.
All right. I just want to make sure we were clear on that so you could.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this will end up spending some time, I'm assuming, with Planning Commission a bit, I would think.
I don't know that it needs
No?
to. I think this is much more of a financial question than a use type question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still kind of see that as trying to understand.
No, I
what
see.
we
I mean, if we're
wanna call-
talking location and that kind of thing.
Well, and just where, when you look even at these variance requests, they're using, what's the vision, what are the things our community wants to achieve? And that, to me, is also part of what really belongs in this policy
I
guide
see where you're
for
going to.
us. Anyone can put in the basic requirements that have to go along with an abatement, and that's great. And a lot of the things, even the county, you see in many, they're just sort of standard language you're seeing in a lot of other policies. But if we're trying to view what's important in this community, I would assume you kind of look at some of that. I just see a little tie over, but maybe not necessarily. And then there's the big thing, is it for more like economic development or housing? I think you might look at those very
Well,
differently too, and which
I don't know, I would say
are
that's the
larger
same,
ones.
pretty much, but it's just me. The housing is economic development.
Oh, well, and yes, and I see what you're saying.
But-
But I meant for some communities, like restoring their downtown business area is super hugely
yeah,
important.
yeah,
And this
yeah.
community, not probably quite as much, I would say. And
That
then,
would be
obviously, that can always change over time.
Right.
And, how long do you want this document to live without having it be changed or reviewed? Would be part of it too, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So do we want to go down the questions and answer them, or how would you like to proceed?
Well, to me, this is a work session event, not to sit here with a bunch
Right,
of
I mean-
people all night. Though I'd like to keep talking about it, but to finally finalize it, I'd like to.
Yeah, I
Spend
mean, I
a bit
think
of
all of these, we can tie back, kind of getting to your point, tie back to our, city vision and all of that. I mean, all of these, we can say like, well, this ties back to that, just like when we say like, okay, we approve this variance because it's following all
Sure.
these
Mm-hmm.
things that we've asked.
Yep.
In the same way, we can tie these back to something specific and say like, yeah, this is part of the city vision, so this is why this is important.
In reading some of the others, I didn't see a whole lot, but I saw a few key things I would have potentially brought to everyone to consider, but I did not get them all typed up or copied in tonight. So
Okay.
I would just like a stab at, a little bit of customization, I guess. Craig, any thoughts? Do you do a lot of reading in the last couple days?
Yeah. I like the idea of bringing it in front of all of us for a work session. I mean, if we're gonna establish a policy, it'd be kind of nice to discuss the ins and outs of it and what some of the catches that may be long-term effects of it. I mean, we're talking about policy now, but I was kind of, had a lot of questions about the project in question right now. But I guess, I don't know when we're gonna, how do you wanna discuss that?
Well, I think we can shift over to the actual resolution. At that time, we could, your questions, would that be more appropriate when we're
I
more
think if we
project?
wait a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that would be more project specific to,
Yeah,
okay.
like I just said, I mean, there's people at the meeting and, if we're gonna get behind a policy, don't you think we should have a work session on establishing that policy and understanding it a little better?
So are you suggesting that we should table this for now and then take it up at a work session? Is that where you're going, Craig?
Well, I'm just, how do you guys think? I'm talking to my colleagues, how do you feel about?
Yep.
It would be nice to do kind of a yes and on this one and start the conversation now anyway, and knowing that we're not going to finish it tonight. But you are
Okay.
going to be asked to make a decision tonight that having some guidelines, some framework
Okay.
would be helpful.
Well, there's no question that housing is the priority
Right.
today,
Yeah.
right? And so it'd be impossible to not have that at the top of the list for items to consider with abatement, right? As a number of units, yeah, probably. I don't think it is for me. I think affordability though is sort of the key, right? Or one of them. You're
If we're
using
gonna help you out.
public monies, right? And so we're basically partners, right? Kind of. And we're also forcing in a way, right? We're bringing the community in as partners as well. And so what do they want, right? Well, they don't necessarily, and here's the thing, I'll digress a little bit. Like, I don't actually like the term affordable because I don't understand it very well.
It's relative.
Yeah. And so it just lacked clarity for me. For all I know, in 5 years or 3 years, when we get 150 apartments built, market rate itself could be 80% AMI, right? We don't know, right? I don't know. Like, we're putting a cap on some of them now in anticipation that, no, there's such demand that they're going to be more expensive at whatever market rate, but that might not always be the case, right? There's going to be a point to which that levels out. But if we're going to use money, if we're going to use our money, or give them back their own money, I guess, in this case, but why would we settle for even 50%? Why wouldn't we go for all of them at 80% AMI? Why would it be 15 or 20%?
The
To
ability.
pencil out? I don't know. And then what's the vetting process behind that, like the financials? How do we know we're not padding margin? How do we know that it's actually live and die by this abatement? Is there a minimum? Like, is there financial reporting that should happen? And who's reporting that? How do we know?
Those are great questions to set up the following conversation.
Yeah.
And not only the policy one, but also the specific one. If you do move on tonight to talk about the resolution of support, all that conversation is yet to occur.
Yeah. That's back to the details that are important, but I think your answers are there, and I think the right people are in the room.
Yeah, I mean,
To
this is
answer
just on top of
that,
my
so.
head, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is what-
No, I think that is, like, I also think, like, number of units matters, like, that does matter, that some of them are, I mean, I know, I get your point about, it's 80% now, but what is that in the future? Got that, but I think that that's a good one that we would want to have in a future policy, to say, like, hey, yeah, that's important to us, and maybe we don't put a number on it because we want to see the project, because we do want things to happen. So, maybe but that'll be an important factor. Like, we might just say how many units are going to be, we won't say affordable, we'll say another word, but,
You
that
can
will-
say affordable, but.
Okay,
yeah.
fine, I'll say it.
But-
Affordable, and then we'll know. We'll say affordability is important to us, and housing is important to us, and number of units we can maybe discuss.
Anything else in general someone has around criteria suggestions at a higher level that might be appropriate for any tax abatement conversation that you would kind of think is particularly important for us to consider? I'm kind of, I read through the counties, kind of use that as a base. Anything maybe that caught your eye or,
I also like the location question. It was interesting, right? Because there are certainly locations inside of city limits that are less desirable than others when it comes to, putting up a bakery or a whatever, right?
Right,
So
right.
when you're looking at a property like whatever, like, it does matter, right? They have to capture some more money because they've had these added costs because they have to do extra work or the site prep stuff. It's like we all understand what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
So,
I like that. I think that again goes back to maybe, not exactly planning and zoning, but sort of like we set up our zoning rules in that corridor to encourage this kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And in the same way, maybe having tax abatement zones makes sense as well.
well, that's interesting.
I don't have any other thoughts on this right now.
Okay.
Whatever, you guys, more things you
I
want
have
to
a
bring
thought.
up about this? Yeah,
I have
Craig?
one thought.
Mhm.
When you're putting together a project like this, of this magnitude, we're not the only ones being asked to give something. If we give a tax abatement of $375,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is, you got a bank involved that's loaning money, you've got IRRB involved, possibly issuing grant money. You have revolving loan funds set up at the county. There's money coming from different avenues. How does all that money tie into, I guess, the protection of an abatement? You know, if you're gonna do a 15-year abatement and 7 years down the road, the partners decide they want their cash out of this thing, so they sell the building. How does that affect our 15-year abatement? Those are the kind of questions I have. How does that affect our relationship with the IRRB? Whether they want to put money into a housing project, and we know we can set up the 50% or the 80% or whatever we're doing, or maybe that can be changed, increased, or as time goes on. Does that number change? Does reduced housing eventually just disappear and then we're all market cap? I don't know. But those are the questions I have when you enter into the long-term tax abatement. Do all tax abatements usually run their full cycle? You know, if not, what can happen to change that? That's the question I have.
Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion. Most of the questions and concerns we have really apply to the resolution sitting before us. Why don't we table this, get it on a work session, which we have another reason for very shortly, and we can focus on it. And let's move on, because that was a long question, and I don't want Craig to have to repeat it. And
We recorded it.
It's recorded.
recorded. Yeah, we're going to do a playback. And let's move on to that resolution. And if Jason Hale, HRA, and I don't know if someone from your group, Tim, wants to come up to the table or just whatever, let's move on so we can get some of those key questions on everyone's mind answered.
I'm not hungry.
You look a little angry.
Good, thanks.
So last year, Valentine's Day was in Schroeder Town Hall celebrating Valentine's Day. So,
Did they have treats?
no, I just brought some. So here's some Valentine's Day candy.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I baked cookies and they're almost all gone. Wait,
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Now I know
are
who you
these
are for
leftovers
real.
from Halloween?
No,
They're that size.
Look at a lot of trick or treaters in the woods actually, so we don't do the Halloween candy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'll set that background.
There are a lot of questions that came up that are honestly, I think. Thank you. I can just hop back here. You can pass over some more chocolate for everyone. You're asking, from my perspective, for whatever it's worth, Council, you're asking really good questions. These are higher level questions about the policy piece, and I think that a work session sounds like a really smart thing to do.
Yeah.
And they're harder things to dial in unless you kind of lay it on the table.
Yeah.
So I just commend you for that. Takes a lot of conversation. One thing that I would, actually addressing Craig's question, trying to remember the whole thing, because there were a few things within that question. One thing I think worth thinking about is, and you're already kind of doing this, but identifying what the top priorities are with an abatement, and then my only caution is if you get too deep in the policy itself, you're going to pigeonhole certain things that you will have to go back and change. So it'd be probably prudent to have some discretion for the council to make specific decisions about sites and about, have obviously the high really important things, have them in there, but if you say, we don't want to do it here, and then you go, actually, that's a really good fit 5-10 years from now. So whatever it's worth.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think you have to be set on the calendar to review.
Yeah, totally.
Can't
There's a
love
lot
it.
to unpack there, right?
Yeah, and things change. You can't let it sit and
Yep.
go. But I think, I'm going to start, because one thing I think a lot of people have asked, and it was one of my questions at a higher level, I think Craig was a little bit more detailed about it, and maybe that gets back to the real estate group more, I'm not sure, but I think there is a question, and maybe it's been answered and I missed this, but what is the long-term plan for the fund for holding or selling this property? Or is some of this then regulated or in some way shaped by all of the financing, which I kind of think is what Craig was asking too.
So I'll answer the second part of that, and then I can turn to Gary to talk to about the funds plans for the property, because that's obviously not my decision or area. So the IRRR grant, which is really the impetus for this request, is to use as match dollars. I think you're all aware of that,
Yep.
for the 750. There's an agreement between the IRRR and the HRA for those dollars. And then subsequent to that, there'd be an agreement between the HRA and the developer. And in that agreement, there are two really important things.
Okay.
And this is why I was trying to talk about the policy being high-level goals and framework, because in the agreement is where you dig down to all these details, such as, for example, the ability to assign an abatement, the ability to request permission first before conveying the property to another party. Like, you build those things in, so HRA development agreements have those built into them, so that we make sure we have oversight. So that's one part of the question I think that Craig had, is let's pretend that Cook County Real Estate Fund decided in year 3 they didn't want to be in the housing business or something. How they do it and what they can do is stipulated one in the development agreement, and a lot of that is the pass-through from the IRRR for us. But there's an additional layer. So, for example, the 50% of the units that are going to be capped at 80% AMI, that's not an IRRR requirement. That's an HRA requirement. We're saying we want to partner with you, and the only reason we're comfortable coming to ask for abatement is because the real estate group was amenable to making that cap on those rents. If they weren't, I wouldn't have asked for an abatement. So that's one of the roles HRAs play, is to try to leverage these sorts of tools to get what the community needs, okay? If they could sell it, there's nothing prohibiting them from selling it. But something really important to keep in mind is the abatement exists because they pay their taxes. If they don't pay their taxes, there's no abatement. So you're basically agreeing for the next X number of years, if you continue to pay your taxes, you will continue to get an abatement from those taxes. If you don't get abatement. Plus, again, if they don't pay taxes, there's probably a foreclosure. There's a lot of other problems they're going to have if they're not paying their taxes. So I want to be clear that those are separate mechanisms. So all the funding, the capital stack that was talked about earlier, the IRRR, Northland Foundation, the revolving loan from the HRA, like there's 7 different sources or 6 or something like that. Those obviously, that's the stack that's needed to make the project go. We've turned over all of the funding rocks, and we went to the county board yesterday to request approval of abatement, and we're here tonight because it's the last rock. There's no more rocks for us to turn over, and we're leveraging all of the other rocks. But all of that stack is what gets the thing built. After that, it's what happens with the property, or can or cannot, is subject to, of course, the deed and then the restrictions and agreements. So if you have any particular questions about how those mechanics are going to work, I'm happy to talk about what the HRA is going to do. But obviously, the abatement agreement between the city and the developer, you have jurisdiction over what you want to include in there that's obviously appropriate for the proceeds you're agreeing to provide.
One of the questions that came up at the planning commission hearing was, are we going to put something in some sort of agreement that prevents the use shifting? Because, of course, residential is not the only primary allowed use in this zone. Lodging is also a primary allowed use.
Yeah, and I think I addressed the council or the planning commission at that time and said, it's the same story. We're only agreeing to help them because they're agreeing to not do short-term rentals. So again, that could be changed down the road if all parties came to the table and wanted to amend that. Because you could imagine, I don't know, we don't need housing for some crazy reason and we need more hotels. I'm just saying, things change, right? Or the usage, look at downtown office space, that changed like overnight. Suddenly we didn't need downtown office space in cities. Like, we just can't predict what's going to happen. But until and unless the parties want to come back to the table, that's not allowed at this property. And they're agreeing to that because they know that's not the intent of the property.
And I listened to the county discussion yesterday, and of course that came up, I guess, more toward the end with Dave Mills. It may be, oddly enough, that at some time in the future, a short stay allowance of some of the units might actually be one way to continue affordability. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, as usual.
Right.
So, and that kind of, as you said, with all things, if you button yourself down too much and you don't know what the future holds, you may do something you never would have guessed. But in the same vein, you should be reviewing things and watching them anyways. Okay, Craig, that was a lot. So you had more questions, or does that kind of help with, do you want to re-ask any?
Oh, that kind of helps, but, I think I wasn't at that meeting, Dave Mills talked about short-term rentals being, the issue here is short-term rentals is not helping our housing. That's why we have a housing problem, in my opinion, because short-term rentals definitely produce income way at a larger, investment than long-term housing is going to. So I would hate to see something like this get built and then all of a sudden we got to do 1 or 2 floors of short-term rentals to financially make it work.
Here, I'll tell you.
Back to,
Yeah, I'll tell you his angle, it's not what you're thinking. It was
Okay,
when
well,
the
I know
affordability
that, then, I'm just
ended,
saying.
when the affordability ended, those increased amounts would allow you to continue the affordability of the, was it like half the units, whatever, could
some other
potentially,
combination you
yeah.
could do.
However the math works out, but that would actually, because at some point, that will end, and then there may not be,
Right.
by definition, affordable, whatever that might be, which we do have a definition for, so,
Yep.
but that's a hard one to, everyone's definition of
It's a
what I
loaded
can
word.
afford, yeah. Anyways, so it's different than what we would have first imagined, because I know what you're saying completely. So when the benefit of an abatement goes away, then maybe that fills the gap. And there are private investors who we know why there's short stays being put in most buildings right now, because that's how they're financed. So anyways,
right.
more things to ask though? Or you can think
I
so.
know.
You can ask again, because I'm sure other people have questions too, so you can think and come back.
Well, I just think about what we did when, this is not a housing thing, well, it actually turned into a housing thing, but when the city used funds to build a business park, it was very specific what could be put in that business park. And then when we wanted to put in housing, we found out that we have to go to the state legislature and change the wording on how that money was to be used. Otherwise, if we start putting housing in that, area, we'd be paying back a lot of money that we used to construct that business park. So I don't want to get in a situation with this facility, being a partner with IRRB or whoever it may be. I just want to make sure that everybody knows what their ask is, and what their expectations are throughout the course of a project,
Sure.
or the livelihood of the project,
No, that makes sense. The unexpected. I'm quit looking at you. Ben?
Well,
So, I guess from the very start, where did the $750,000 IRRB money, where did that start? Where did the 750 number come from? Was that a shortfall that you guys did, $1.5 million, or was that a grant that they were just piloting and they're like, hey, we can get up to 750, right? I'm serious. I want to know, how did that, where did that number come from?
The short version, Counselor, is they announced, the IRRR announced this pilot program in November, but, was talking with staff there last summer about it. They announced $5 million. And the gap, the financing gap for the project is definitely more than $750,000. But Cook County has to be careful, you don't want to put one application that asks for $1.4 million. So we talked with staff and we tried to right-size the ask such that we felt comfortable that they would, fund it or say yes. So part of it's what's the appropriate amount to ask for here in a pilot program. And then the other part is we also have to match that from somewhere. So you can imagine if we ask for too much, the gap has to be, let's say it has to be double whatever we ask for. Does that make sense?
So it wasn't driven by a project shortfall or a cash flow issue within
No, it
the
is.
project?
Yeah, for sure. It's both of those things. Sorry, Counselor. So there is a gap that's in excess of $1.5 million something. My point is, if we ask for $750,000, we have to fill the gap. The gap has to at least be double that because we need a local match of that amount.
Right.
So here's actually a good case in point. I was going to bring this up for reference. Have you heard of the Boathouse Bay project idea in Silver Bay? It was in the news.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big, okay. It's a big deal for Silver Bay. The reason I mention it's because that project is, the city is providing over 10 acres. They're doing a TIF district. IRRR is bringing over $1 million. And that's for townhomes to be sold at like $650,000 and for short-term rentals. There's no affordability. There's no for sale homes that are affordable to most people. My point is, that's what's required for them to pull it off. Just for context, we're talking about leveraging state money and then coming to the city and the county to help build an affordable project that's half affordable, half market, right? My whole point of mentioning that is, even market rate, there's a funding gap. So we can pull the pro forma anytime you want to be bored. Probably Gary or I would be happy to pull the pro forma and show you this is exactly how the math is working. And it's not just us, we have to run everything through Ellers. And Ellers corroborates and we negotiate with the developer in any project like, we think you need this, you don't need that. There's just a lot of back and forth. And in fact, tonight, if the council decides to pass this resolution, we go back to the drawing board with Ellers and the developer and say, okay, here's the abatement that has been approved or pointed to. We still have to wait on the IRRR grant. If we get that, we can check that off the list and say, now here's the remaining gap. We won't know what the total remaining gap is until IRRR makes some decision. So we're just trying to get a nod to say we're going to partner as a community in all these entities to leverage their money, and then we'll actually know what the real gap is going to be after we figure out what they're going to bring to the table. Does that make a sort of sense? It's complicated, is that?
It is my understanding that you're taking a conservative calculation on this so that you're asking the city and the county for this is the absolute max that would be asked for, not necessarily the amount, but this eliminates the need to come back and say, guess what, it could be more.
Yep. Correct, ma'am.
You're never going to price a product at 40% of what you think it is. You're going to price it as high as you can because you can't ever raise it if you need to. No one will buy it. So you've been conservative in this, and like you said, we have to come to the table. We've said as a city and a county that we support housing, so in some way, shape, or form for this to go through for IRRR. I mean, forget the numbers. There has to be some support from the city of some nature for this, whatever it might be.
And Mayor, that's exactly right. We're trying to be conservative. These are not only is the max we would quote unquote ask for, it's the max we could, because it's based on 15 years of projected abatement. One thing that's a little different to point out here is a lot of tax abatement or TIF projects, they monetize the TIF or tax abatement. So in other words, they take the future revenue stream and they use it to get money now. It's like a loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this project's not doing that. We're bringing these other resources to the table and we're reducing the amount of tax abatement that's probably needed. The reason why it works is because they're not trying to monetize it at 8% today, which is market rate for commercial loans, right? So they're just using it to make the project cash flow appropriately. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, depends on the project structured. But my point is, like for the bonding for this building, you are capturing existing tax base that already is here, and you're monetizing that to pay bonds back. That's not the case here. There's no leverage note up front. So in other words, if the abatement's stopped, there's not a mortgage note they have to pay with that abatement. It just hurts the cash flow, the viability of the project. I'm trying not to get too deep in the weeds. Tax abatement's complicated, but sorry, I'm getting in the weeds.
One of the things the county's policy says is no individual tax abatement should exceed 1% of the current net levy. Now, obviously, the county's current net levy is quite a bit higher than the city's current net levy, but 25,000 is more than 2% of our current net levy. So, have you done the math on what you think you're going to be paying the city in taxes? Are we close?
Whose policy is the 1%?
The county's.
Oh, that's the county's policy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the total projected, well, we think the total tax liability for all taxing jurisdictions is going to be between $60,000 and $70,000 annually.
We just looked at an actual bill tonight, of a $70,000 tax bill in the city for a commercial property, and it was about 20 that went to the city.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to figure that out, kind of what does this look like over 15 years to add up to the number? Because it's not gonna be 25 day one if
We
they
have
owe
those runs done.
25.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ellers has that. We have all of that information.
We're not gonna be bored by that, by the way. We'd love to see all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a good case study for a policy conversation, honestly.
Absolutely.
We can bring it in and show you this is the math and the thought behind it.
Yeah.
And again, the 1%, that's the counties, but that's exactly because their tax base is so much bigger
Yeah.
that 1% of the county's tax. is
Seems like a
pretty big.
smart
Yeah.
policy, though, to put a limit on it, and
Yep.
you know, our limit is gonna have to be bigger than 1% to make something like this work.
'Cause it's-
That's a
One more thing about tax abatement, just the mechanics of it, so we're not surprised by this. If you approve a tax abatement of $25,000 for a project, and they pay $25,000 in taxes, the only way that's net zero to us is if we increase the levy by $25,000, right? So if we don't increase the levy, they're still gonna pay $25,000, and we're gonna have to pay it back to them. So that's an expense that ends up a line item on our expense side. And if we don't increase the levy a commensurate amount, then it has to come from somewhere else. So just build that into your assumptions, that we need to also increase our levy by the amount we're imagining that their taxes are gonna increase.
Which is
Now,
2%.
everybody else in town should be held harmless by that, right? Because we're increasing our levy the amount that they're adding to our levy. But
Yeah,
just
it's a
don't be
net.
surprised by the
Oh, okay.
percentage increase might be a little more than you thought it was, because we're actually taking this one and adding it all at once without changing anybody else's, where often what happens is when a new project shows up, that increase makes everybody's a little bit smaller.
Well, I think now that to me is too much in the weeds, because if
And
we,
that's about 2%, right? 2.5% levy, 25 grand.
Yeah, so if you wanted it to be 3, it's gonna be 5.5, and be just forewarned.
but let's remember the basic concept here. And I believe these are the right numbers. Right now, the property taxes coming in on that land is $2,200. When this improvement goes in, and I thought I heard 50, but you said 60, I was listening, so I may have.
In the estimate, we have a conservative 70, actually, is the projection Elders gave us from talking with the county.
So 50 to 70 was the conversation I heard with the county, and I know you guys started at the lower amount. And then what I asked Mike today was, when of the potential of that 50 to 70 range, what actually is the cities, which is what you guys are talking about right at this moment. Because if you just do the straight math of 375 divided into 15, that's 25 grand a year, which is what Mike was getting at. And at 30%, that could be as low as 15 or maybe 20 of our taxes, to get of the 25 grand, if we're saying that's our contribution, so to speak. This is like super simple math. I mean, I don't mean it, that didn't quite sound the way I mean. I'm just trying to keep it at a really
Higher
easy level.
I
I didn't mean to
understand.
say, sorry, it didn't come out quite the way I meant it, but just keeping it really basic.
Yeah.
Our contribution would be 25 grand a year, just straight now, not any, whatever, just
Understood.
when you just want to think about how much money really is this out of the city's lot of money that we put out in a lot of different directions, what is 25 grand really?
Right.
And you're looking at huge development, as all my point in that is. And
Okay.
then the other point is, which is Mike was trying to say, if the taxes go up to 50 to 70,000, that's everybody's, but how much of that is the city's? And then are we doing our share back then, by that amount?
Mayor, just
Get that.
I think to reinforce the high level concept here, I know
Thank
it's so
you.
hard not to get into the weeds. The short version is that each taxing jurisdiction has its own percentage, right? And you're alluding to that. Cities is like 34%, whatever, something like that. 34. The point is, what Ellers does, and that's part of the reason we work with them,
Right.
is they say, what's the original tax capacity? Right now, it's $2,200, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
for that property. So if nothing else changes, unless the levy goes up, if nothing else, all things being equal, you would continue to get, not even just you, sorry, you'd have to split that $2,200 with the county and the school district. So
Yeah.
you'd get, I don't know, 34% of $2,200. Not a lot.
It's nothing, we know that. I mean,
Yeah, right. So my
Yeah.
point, my point is, like, barring something else changing, that's what you would get forever until something else was built there.
yep,
When this is done, Ellers projects that it's going to be valued at 70,000. Or excuse me, not valued at 70,000. The tax
Taxes,
liability is going
yep.
to be 70,000.
Yeah.
Right now, the way we have it structured is that 90% of the increase, so from 70 to 2,200, so call it 68,000, that's the increase. 90% of that's going to that would be the request, is be committed for abatement. So there's still 10% growth, 10% of that growth, $6,800, whatever it is.
Just a moment. Craig says he can't hear us, so I want to try to
oh, okay.
fix that.
Did we lose him?
He.
Can Attorney
Completely?
Kringler hear us?
Yep, I still got you loud and clear.
Okay.
I think
so
we
then it's
lost,
on.
did we just
Craig's.
lose Craig for a minute?
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
logging out and logging back in.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't want the counselor to miss this really riveting information, so I should probably.
Well, he asked about it.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
He said he's going to log back in.
Okay.
Here he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Can you hear us now, Craig?
Yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Where were we?
Gotcha.
I was just finishing up the tax abatement run, which is just to say that increase, the jurisdictions will continue to get their taxes. I
Right.
think it's just really important, because it's so complicated that I did this at the county board, and Mary, you said. you
Don't
wanted
say
to
that
do
you're
this.
gonna just scare people. We can do this.
I know you can do it. No, tax abatement generally is so foreign to most people, and so it's to all these tools. People don't use them every day. Why would you? My point is, I just really like to reinforce that the value that's being promised back to the developer is created by the developer. So if they don't do the project, the tax abatement's impossible. So you're not taking money from your levy and saying, we're committing 25 grand a year from our existing levy to pay for this. You're committing future dollars that they're creating from a project. So I know I'm ad nauseum, but I think it's really important, because people think they're getting a check from the city's coffers or something, and that's not how it works.
Well, in a sense, it kind of is, actually.
Well, not until they create the value.
I mean, they pay it to us first, but we are definitely writing a check.
Yeah,
from the
okay,
city's
technically, yes. They send
All
you the
right,
check. you
enough
rewrite
of
the check.
that.
It's
you
an
wonder why
important
people are
distinction.
confused.
Like, I
Well-
think saying it the way you're saying it is maybe misleading to some people. It's for sure a check from the city's coffers. You are
After they pay you
agreeing.
the check.
Right, so, yeah, so add the first part of that sentence and then add his sentence and then we're good again. Or you're gonna start
Yes,
distracting
I'm not at all
people.
trying to mislead people.
You are not.
They're-
That's
They
fine.
write a check. You write them back a check.
Check, yes.
2 checks.
Goes in, it goes out.
With
you.
regard to this particular resolution that's before you, just to bring it kind of full circle back to that, the request tonight, of course, which was the same, yesterday was actually the public hearing with the county, but tonight, Administrator Roth wanted to make sure that, because there's a policy question here that you wanted to talk about, so that conversation started tonight. Obviously, it's going to have to finish with a work session and more conversation. Tonight, the request is that you indicate that you're supportive of the project and that you're committed to talking about abatement, and exploring an abatement agreement for the project. So it's really, for IRRR, it's a nod to say, yeah, the city likes where this is going, we need to explore more details, and you're not committing to any specific thing right now,
Okay.
except that. Because there's more work to do, obviously.
The one thing I would like, though, to make perfectly clear about this because there are different ways to structure abatements. But in this case, the city continues to get the $2,200 they've always been getting. At this point, I have not seen anyone jumping to develop that property, but now somebody is. So we will continue to get our $2,200. And by this abatement, the money that they generate in additional taxes will help them get this housing project up and running. And for our budgeting purposes, we're not looking at a change to our budget or an increase or a cash out of pocket, and we aren't any worse off than where we started. And that to me is the difference about abatements and its housing. If you were in here under an economic development thing, I might feel different and I'd ask a lot more questions, because the last thing I'd ever want to see is a business come and ask for tax dollars and then leave at some time in the future, which, that's been ongoing for many, many years. I've watched that all over the country, and I'm always skeptical. And that's why I've said from day one, this has been one of the issues 90% of this county, I think, 98, I don't know. Never seen anything we almost agree on around here, which there's nothing wrong about that, because empathy is worse, but I just want that at a high level. I hope that helps, as opposed to all the details that we all have to absorb. And I do want to say thank you for all the times you have spoken to so many different groups and meetings. We've crossed paths a lot, and you came here right away to discuss this in general terms, kind of a primer. And then I did listen to yesterday's long meeting with lots of really great questions from the county commissioners as well. So, we can still keep asking questions and talking, but I just wanted that much set out. More questions? More thoughts?
No, I think there's going to be a lot more conversation about this.
Yeah.
So
You're okay for right now?
I am.
Okay. Craig, more questions or?
Yeah, is it always, like the county approves the abatement, the city approves, is it always a city-county, equal share of city-county? Or what if the county approves this and the city doesn't approve it? Or what if the city wants to do this and the county doesn't want to do it? Does an abatement still happen just for a certain entity that's taxing? Like the city taxes differently than the county. I was just curious about that.
Do you mind if I
Take it.
Great. Counselor, great question. The short answer is that it can go both ways. Administrator Roth and I have talked about this being, when the abatement agreement actually comes forward, it would be a three-way agreement. It could be between the city, the county, the developer. So then all the entities are like, here's what we're all bringing to the table, here's what's expected, et cetera. I've worked on abatements that are just a city or just a county. TIF, for example, the reason counties don't like TIF is because they don't get a say. But with abatements, county gets to voluntarily participate or not participate. And of course, yesterday, the board approved their participation up to a certain amount. So it just depends on the situation, but they're willing to join forces on this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think one thing too that I in the last few conversations and listening to yesterday's, I haven't paid as much attention to your role in this as an advocate of who, but it's become more clear to me the detail level at which your role, I don't know if protects the right word, but puts the interest of the city and county, and for an expertise that we don't have, your role helps add that of making sure what we need done is done correctly.
Mayor, I just told my colleague here that this afternoon, that my job is not to be friends with the developers or to do what they want, but to protect the city and the county and their interests.
The primary one, which is, we've said we need more housing, so.
Right.
Right. So
I'm being a bulldog about it because that's what I'm here for.
It's okay. Everybody has their role and they need to play it well. So, may we move on to the resolution? Are we ready? Or Well, I don't know why. You need a screen.
I know, I just screened it.
Oh.
I'm not here.
All right, would someone like to make a motion on Resolution 2024-07?
I will make the motion to approve City Council Resolution 2024-07.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Craig. Any further question or discussion? All right, Craig.
Aye.
Okay. Ben?
Aye.
Aye. Wow, there's 3 of us. It's just my indirect plug for the fact that we're missing a council person. All right.
Gentlemen.
Welcome back, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I appreciate it.
I have one more agenda item, so.
Okay.
I have another agenda
All
item,
right.
so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay in the hot seat.
And the housing fun is not over with.
Never ends
Hold
there.
No.
Part 3? I better how you want to divide
Feels like
this up
more than
tonight?
3.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
All right, so now we have the property discussions around the front property at the top of the hill. I guess, I don't know if we call it now the Public Works property, the Tom Tabota property, however you want to cut that. We need to talk about that. So, way back when it became aware and the city purchased that property, holding other property like the one we're sitting on right now, was the question of why did we buy more property and what would we do? And then there was a time in which part of that property at the top of the hill went up for sale. And the conversation always was, once we made a final decision about what we would do at the city hall and liquor store, that we would put this property officially up for sale, because the last time there was an offer made on a portion of the property, we heard from a lot of the public because we had never officially put that up for sale, and then an offer came through, and well, it was not maybe the best of situations. So one of the first pieces that we wanted to consider was what is the right thing for that property, and then in the meantime we also have the potential of yet more housing being developed on that property. And so with that, which all of you got the information, we asked for a market analysis, not an official appraisal.
Right.
And so hopefully you've all had a chance to read that and consider that, and then how we feel about that. It also, to me, if we were to move forward with the developers on this, I think it's important too to have this market analysis, so then we know a better idea of what our true contribution is on that project as well, too, by having this. I mean, we never know a value till the day it sells, but still, I think it was very helpful. And it was also because we know that small lot too.
Yeah.
As well. So, any opening thoughts on that?
A reminder that water is readily available on both of these lots. Sewer is going to require a little bit of work, which for a large development won't be much. It'd be a typical sort of cost. For a retail shop, it won't be as much work, but it'll be potentially a bigger chunk, just percentage-wise. And then as the project gets even bigger, at some point, we'll have some larger fixed costs, because we've got a lift station that used to serve the Tom Tabota Motel that is now serving all these properties. I don't know how many apartments it's going to be able to absorb. I would assume 20 is not a problem, but we'll have to look at that. So in order to access the full value here, there might be some investment necessary on our part. And then the other thing I'd say is, I think the square footage of the smaller lot's probably not quite right in terms of how much is buildable. So we need to give better information in. We didn't give good enough information in to get the right number on that side. But for the side that we're talking about tonight, there it is.
Okay.
One of the beautiful things about that lot is that it's flat and there aren't any issues. Every inch of it is accessible and buildable and ready to go.
Administrator, have you done a wetland delineation? I'm just suspicious that there's probably.
We did a wetland delineation of our property when we bought it, of course.
This is the only property.
And we
I've seen
found
that-
some.
Oh,
Shocking. Not on that.
Yeah.
So, I guess our real question, so we aren't here for all of Valentine's, is do we retain this property and put it out up for sale to whomever, which is always your investment risk, right? A private person can just think, yeah, it's my property and I can put whatever price I want it and I can sit on it for as long as I want, or I can fire sale it if I want. When you are a government and you represent a bunch of people, then you have to be a little bit more careful if you're willing to accept that risk with your investment and hope that you get the money you want. So to me, that's the risk. However you want to think about it, that's the risk. Do we sit on it and someone comes along, or don't we? Whatever. And then the other is, do we continue our support for housing with a development that has correct me at any moment, Jason, but a $1 million grant available to help develop this property and bring potentially 2 buildings, right?
One.
Well, it was.
Or 1. Potentially 2 or maybe 1 at this time
Within
with,
the
an
joint.
The grant is for phase 1.
Yeah, and so up to 2. And there was one other thing I was going to add to this, but now it's zipped through. Oh, for which now we have I know what it was, just to clarify, based on the market analysis that we were provided by the realtor, that property sits at about $350,000. And then the side lot, and do you think 150, you were saying we know it's not all buildable. Do you think 150 was a little bit aggressive?
I think
on
it's
the
too
side lot?
high, yeah. I think we gave her too many square foot to do the math on over there, so.
So the
We
smaller
could dial
lot can
that
be
in
less.
when it's time to talk about that lot and get a better number.
That one's not being
It's not
addressed
Right.
right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep,
it's not.
that's separate. It only kind of ties back to the original conversation, was why did we spend money
Well-
on land? Well, we could recoup most, if not all of it, by selling the front part. That's the only reason I'm bringing that back up. And that kind of gets to the open forum comment
Yeah.
earlier this evening. So
Yeah.
just wanted to, bring that into the conversation. So I think just to cut to the chase, what do we think? Or am I missing some points about what else we need to talk about around
No,
this?
I think it's.
Go ahead, please. For some reason, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank on, I thought like the ask was like a $200,000. Was that sort of where what was debated or discussed, was like that was
Yeah.
what was needed to hit this $1 million?
Counselor, so we still have, the developer and I are, mostly them, are still meeting with other local businesses, like for the reason that Counselor Gary couldn't talk about other projects because of his employer, right? The clinic was looking at being involved. They haven't committed to this particular project yet. My point is, we were putting as a placeholder the value of $200,000 for the property based on the sale of the Heights property, which is just down the way, which is, I think, was 183, and it's pretty similar, right? So that's what we used as a ballpark, as a line item. If it's more than that, it means that we don't have to get other funds from the local community or other resources. So all of that's to say, like, if it is worth 2 or 250, that means we would need 250 more. So in short, the grant, the $1 million grant we're going after, which is only available, I have to say, a shout out, is only available to Grand Marais and Cook County because legislation was changed by people before me to make it available for this community. So in order to get that, we need to bring $500,000 from the local community, and it can't be like developer equity. It has to be local resources. So it's, we either, if the value, for example, is 350, is the broker opinion value, I think what you said, that means we need to get 150 instead of 250. So we were hopeful that, like, if it was valued at 200, well, then we'll figure out, we'll boots on the ground to find the rest. But if we can't, if the land wasn't even available, it's sort of a non-issue. It's a moot point. 'Cause
Yeah, this development is site-specific, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I
Yep,
thought.
yep. We looked
Okay.
at, there are a couple other properties that I've walked with him or shown him, and yeah, the design was for this site.
My other recollection was that, with the first phase of this development, it didn't require the full piece of property. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Oh, because then, yeah.
That wasn't.
No, you're right.
We were trying to accommodate the concerns about having more commercial space available. So he said, again, just real quick, when we originally met with council on November 8th or something, council mentioned, hey, what if, you did more housing there, like more density, because 16 seems, so we thought, okay, we'll do 2 phases. But now in light of the opportunity to sell some of it, we said, well, we can just do the 1 phase and take advantage of this grant, and then you could still sell half of it or whatever. So we were just trying to figure out a way
Or
to
keep
make
it
sense.
for phase 2 down the road or whatever presents, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
It
It's
could
an
be a
option.
question mark on that.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. Craig?
Yeah.
Sorry you didn't get
Well, is
chocolate.
this, what's that?
Sorry you didn't get a chocolate.
Nah, it's okay. I've got grandchildren at home that have lots of candy I can raid when they get home. Yeah, I don't know. Is this land that the city wants to continue sitting on? Is this land that the city, I've been getting a few phone calls and text messages from people. Their viewpoint is, why doesn't the city sell it? Why isn't that money being used to go back into the city and be used for infrastructure or for projects we're doing within the city, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Obviously, we decided not to use that property for the city liquor store or city hall. So some people are going, well, then why don't we sell it? Unless, of course, the city needs it for some use down in the future for development for city buildings or whatever we might be dreaming of. I have no idea, but I don't know. I'm not getting any positive feedback from people to give the land away. That's what I have to say. I don't, I'm understanding what the development costs are, but I don't know. That's just off the cuff, me thinking. Especially if we're getting an appraisal on it. And I know what land costs, I know what it's worth. I just sold a piece of property downtown Grand Marais. And I've seen other pieces get sold for. There's some comps that Virginia used. There's a couple of comps I don't think she did use, but she could have used for square footage and what that land might be worth. So I'm just kind of curious about, we don't really have an appraisal. We just kind of have an idea of what the value might be. So anyway, that's my thinking on that right now.
Okay. Would you like to point out the end result of once that land is developed?
Mayor, you're reading my mind, yes. There were 2 things, Counselor, great questions. I've been asked the same, maybe by the same people. 2 things. One is that I think to the mayor's point, when the property is actually built and on the tax rolls, the value is projected to be, or I should say taxable liability is projected to be about $30,000 to $40,000. So I think actually Administrator Roth said this earlier when he was talking about the policy conversation. TIF or tax abatement or land, it's an accounting question. This developer or some other developer who wanted to do housing could pay $350,000 for it, and then they would be coming to the HRA to ask us to ask for abatement or TIF. I don't like it any more than you do, but that's the way that this world works, especially because the grant requires that the local community contributes. The state is, and actually last year, this last 23, they changed it. They used to do a 1-to-1. So we would have to bring, 500 or a million, depending on how much we asked. They halved it this year. So we only have to bring 1 to 2, which thank God. But my point is, if the housing is one of the priorities, of course, and I know you all know it is, and we're working on that, and you're supportive of it, it's just 6 in one, half a dozen the other. So if you think the site's appropriate for housing, it's zoned for large apartments,
Yeah.
and you want to see a project happen in this corridor, we could buy it and then come back and ask for money from some other place, or you could sell it, and then someone will build something else, and that's fine. If you do provide it for $1, then in 10 years you get the sale price. I mean, more give or take, right? The property taxes will generate. Obviously it's the tax jurisdictions.
Yeah, we'll split it with
Right,
everybody.
right. But one of the things that I'm continue to sort of beat the drum on is, it's just a hierarchy of values. Is the one-time shot of $350,000 worth more than 16 more units of housing? I can't answer that question for the community. I know that for my board and myself, we're saying yes. That's why we're making the request, is to sacrifice whatever the value ultimately would be. And to your earlier point, maybe it's half the space. So if you still have another lot you can sell for $200,000, you're not out as much, if that's the route you want to go. We're just open to whatever we need to do to make this site work. But obviously that's your purview. But it will be on the tax rolls, and we're asking for the land so we don't ask for some other tool like TIF or abatement.
Gotcha.
And is it?
Yeah.
Was that end up being literally half, or do you think a little bit more? if
Well,
we
you have the
did
side
divide-
lot, right? That's that other, you're talking about 150,000 or
It's
whatever?
more. I think they were gonna use more than half of the larger piece.
Okay.
That's what I wanted.
Because they
to know.
kinda had
What do you-
two phases, but they both
Right.
shared that central piece.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about just the,
Yeah, and we didn't measure, I'm sure we
Okay.
could pretty quickly how big the remnant piece, I don't know.
yeah.
If that concept of retain a piece and sell it separate from this project is interesting, we can get a lot more detail on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted, was in enough space to be value add or not? Like how much do you need, and then what
Right.
do you get left?
Mhm.
Is there value to that, or
Mhm.
had a big picture?
Yep.
And, I mean, if they're not gonna use it for phase 2 right now, it wouldn't hurt to hang on to it. We can always give it to them later if they ask, and there's another deal like this on the table.
Right.
Or we can always offer it for sale, and if something else interesting happens. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to get a lot of boxes checked here. And I'm glad that, Jason, you brought up that the policy conversation you just had wasn't really a tax abatement policy conversation. It was a subsidize the development of housing policy conversation. I mean, you'd use the same reasoning, and it's just whatever tool is the right tool is a different conversation. But why would you say yes to or no to an ask for our public funds? Is this doing the same things that other one is? That's the next question. Like, is there an affordability component that you need to see in this in order to move forward? Is the number of units okay? All the same questions that you had before, I think, are relevant to this ask too.
You mentioned, I
Yeah.
thought you had that in that formula.
What's that, Mayor?
You had some affordability units in that, in their
this
formula,
particular
right?
project?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rents are
Okay.
actually restricted by Minnesota Housing for this project. So it's between 80 and 120% AMI. The program doesn't allow more affordable than that. Or I should put it this way. You can try to include it in the application, but Minnesota Housing staff have said, we don't recommend that you do that if you want to get better points. The whole point of the program is to help workforce and market rate housing in rural Minnesota. So we're a little hamstrung with what we can actually do. Even if we wanted to do 100% at 50%, we can't do it for this program.
But it still takes into recognition that it's not just going to be market rate.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
all I
yeah,
meant,
yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
called the Workforce Housing Development Program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that does
80 to 120, yeah.
check another box on that.
And I believe that the only one that's ever happened here was Sawbill Village got one of these awards. It was a 6-unit project down in Tofty.
Right.
it got that, and tax abatement from the county, and obviously that didn't happen. Size is part of the problem here, but.
4 directions, it needs to be that.
Oh, thank you, that's right, thank you for that.
What was that, Mary?
4 directions.
4 directions, dwellings, the apartment.
Oh, the name of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
sorry
sorry. I
about that.
thought
Yeah,
you're
that's
making another point of the whole, okay, never mind.
No, the project for.
Project name,
includes
yeah,
it, yeah.
yeah,
They
okay,
also got money from this workforce program.
That's right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of using this property in this case, makes sense to me. I do hear what people are saying, though, about like, well, you know, should we sell it? And yeah, I mean, that, I see that too. I mean, you know, we zoned it a certain way because we want to see certain things happen there. I do feel like this is a good project, and it makes sense for us to use city resources to help it along. I mean, it's obviously not all our thing. We're just a piece of the whole puzzle, but I think it makes sense to do that. In terms of like, what do we do for the rest of the property? I mean, I know it's more of a conversation, but yeah, I mean, I would like to see stuff happen with it. I mean, I don't know that we need to hold on to it, but I mean, if we have more projects coming, I mean, that's the other thing, like, well, somebody came with this project, maybe somebody's got another project, and it might be nice to have the property, you know, to use for these sorts of things, especially since we said, yep, this is where we want to have apartment buildings, this makes sense. So
you're saying that the remaining piece, if they didn't use it, as
Well,
we're talking about right now?
yeah,
like to
yeah,
keep
yeah.
the- okay.
Like saying that the whole thing, yeah.
Make
So
sure I'm
that's
tracking.
where it gets tricky, right? I mean, because it seems like we've had these requests, and I don't know, this could be, a lot of good can come from this, because we don't have problems with having businesses up here, but we do have problems with having people to run them or work in them. So, I don't know, that'd be my 2 cents.
Yeah, we probably do have problems having businesses up here too.
Well, yeah, but
But they're not, this isn't gonna support a business that we're trying to get that we don't already have a bunch of. You know, whereas we do know we need a lot more housing.
Yes, right.
One bit of advice that I got early in this conversation was that we should seriously think about keeping it for our own needs, for the expansion of the Public Works Garage. That's really challenging for me to think about, because I hate to imagine sitting on it for 20 years before we decide we need more space. And but if we decide we need more space at some point, there isn't any, right? It's a big challenge. So that same, I think, Tracy, you said, you know, if it's a private person, they can hang on to it as long as they want, and it's not a risk. But we're holding on to it on the public's behalf. So it was really tough to kind of think that through. Well, there's an expectation on some of the public's behalf right now that they get their return back, and there's multiple ways to do that, including sell it or get somebody to pay taxes on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the last flat piece of property too. If we need to buy 2 more large snowplows, we're gonna have to do some thinking about where they're gonna park.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the Coast Guard. Yeah, just
I'm sure that a lot of stuff. One other just quick note to keep in mind, anytime, like, nothing is conveyed or gets conveyed until and unless they get the grant and they close on all the financing. So just be clear, like, for example, the HRA has no desire, we don't want to get this property and sit on it or anything, like, we don't even need to hold it. Like, the whole point is, if they can manage to bring the rest of that capital stack to the table and they get funded to do the project, great, then it can happen. But unless that happens, then then the city owns the property. I just want to be clear about that, because some people are like, well, you assemble this property, like, no, we don't need to get the keys can stay with the city until the project happens.
Yeah.
So I'm the first to say that I did not want that conversation ever forgotten about what we said we would do and honor and that's why I've been saying that right from the get-go. And we were just about to have that conversation and you showed up with the housing project. Yeah, I had to throw a wrench in. So I wanted that to come to a conclusion, and which I hope we will tonight. We will tonight. I hope. But that said, I also keep in the back of my mind, like you've said, there's a lot of projects, none of them are real yet, including the real estate funds project. And we don't know which, if any, of these housing developments will come to life. So we're taking a risk by not acting on that too, or stopping, holding one up. I'm not throwing it in the pot. I think a lot of people are assuming that if it goes to a housing project that somehow it isn't advancing the tax rolls, but it is. And I think that doesn't get in. So in a sense, we're putting in our contribution to something, but it's not. We're getting part of what people want is to see that property utilized to increase its taxes, and that would be accomplished by that. It's part of what people want out of this. And we still have some properties. If somebody wanted to buy it one other time for a business, I'm assuming they will again with the smaller lot, and then potentially a small piece on the other side. Still with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. We did an informal. We didn't exactly survey everybody. I just got on the radio and said, please, if you have thoughts or opinions, and I think I got 1 or 2 emails out of the deal on that. Sounds like Craig heard from more people than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear from? No? Okay, in general. How does Craig get everything?
He knows people.
He's so
he really does.
He doesn't
So-
even have to be here.
No.
Yeah, how does that work anyways? That's just reinforcing this whole remote concept at one more level. Okay.
Tracy, you talked about the idea of development up here spurring other development too, like the neighborhood becoming more valuable. And I really think a development like this makes our piece, the small piece on the other side, significantly more interesting.
Yeah.
A lot more businesses make sense with that group of people there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way along there between that. And we said, and Craig and I said that too, that whole area did have more businesses for a long time. Things come and go. And there was more activity and businesses up there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, and it's heading, we have another business coming in the spring, and I would venture that across the street there'll be changes sometime in the next 10 years from that property. So, yeah, there's always something happening.
Wait, what?
Think about that.
Across which street? Which way?
Highway 61, that street?
Yeah, but which way?
You're talking about across from the bakery. Maybe didn't follow, yeah.
Oh,
No, I meant at the top of the hill, the
Yeah.
property we're talking
okay.
about.
Yeah.
Across.
My guess that there will be something sometime in the next 10 years changing around there. So, yeah, I think there's, and if people feel that way, if you end up with 2 housing things, maybe there is more that will happen up there.
Yeah. So you put in a shop.
We can't predict that, of course, but this isn't exactly a resolution, but it's some kind of motion for agreement on what our next step should be. Is that the correct way to view this?
I think even a motion that said you're interested in continuing the conversation where we're going to contribute the property to the development is probably all that we need to do right now.
Well, just to be clear, if I might, Administrator,
Make it clear.
I will make it clear, Mayor. If you motion to commit to continuing to talk about it, it's not particularly helpful, because the intent or the spirit of this conversation was to make that determination after the last 2 weeks. Because then there's still not a direction or a decision, and we can't continue to apply for the grant.
No, we said we would handle this decision tonight because it was a timely one, and we committed that to our last meeting.
Yeah.
So I think it is time to do that.
But how do you do that without knowing the details of how much land we're committing and how we carve that
Oh.
up, and do we want to carve it up and all
Well,
that?
maybe we're both right, but I'm glad you clarified that. Obviously, we're going to keep talking about this as the details get developed.
Okay.
But maybe that
But-
baseline understanding of we're willing to contribute the property to this project to make it happen.
Yes, we're willing to contribute
Details to
that.
follow, Right.
Important
Portion.
details that would need to work for us, but to
Right.
follow.
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're clear, otherwise.
I'll make that motion.
Call.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Wow. Somebody wants to get to that Valentine's chocolate box. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. When you say contribute, are you talking, what are we talking about here?
The
Explicit. Well, I think what Councilor's getting to is contribute for what cost? Is it for $1 or provide in what fashion?
Do you want to say contribute the land needed for phase one, as you were shown at your last meeting, for $1? How about that?
that
That's fine.
that sounds
clarity.
good.
Is that what you were asking, Craig?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
I don't know if we were, I mean, we got analysis from Virginia Dietrich, so I was just wondering if we're still on that same wavelength,
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And it's just the
Oh, yeah.
larger lot, not the smaller lot. I don't think it's-
A portion of the bigger
A
lot.
portion of
A
it.
portion of the bigger lot,
Correct.
yep.
Yep, exactly. All right, so now we're, okay. Are you going- Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
No? All right.
so you got a motion,
And a second.
Yes.
And a second.
All right, so Ben,
Aye.
Aye.
Craig,
no,
There he is, there he is.
There he is.
There he is.
Craig votes no.
no,
okay, all right, aye.
Did the attorney,
can't hear you.
was the attorney saying something? I thought he was trying to say
Oh, do we lose him? Do we lose?
No, I'm still here. I was just, I think it would be helpful for the record to clarify what exactly the motion was, because there's a lot of
Sure.
discussion back and forth.
Sure,
And so
yes,
moved.
let's reread.
For clarity of the record, yep.
So the city to contribute the portion of the property necessary for phase one to the developer for $1.
Claire. Do we need to do a roll call again?
That's the motion that everyone understood that they already voted on?
That is.
That is.
Okay.
That should suffice.
Okay, very good. And we captured Craig, so we're good. All right,
So that motion
Yes.
carries, right?
yes.
Okay, but it's 3-1.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Wow, all right. Liquor store lease.
Big fun.
My goodness.
I'm gonna eat my chocolate now, thank you.
All right, I have leftovers.
Well, you should bring chocolate to every council meeting.
Yeah.
So we are pleased to announce that we have a lease ready to go with the Beaver House to have our liquor store running and operating by April 1st, if not before, and running until the completion of the new city hall and liquor store. Yay!
Yay.
Thank goodness, yes.
Yes.
I can't express how excited everybody is that's involved in this project too. Obviously, it's a giant amount of work to take a going concern and exit a building and then take another one and put it in there. And so thank you to everyone who's put a lot of effort towards making this work. And it's really a neat location. For us to be able to contribute to its long-term viability by stepping in and paying some rent and demonstrating again what a great location it is by doing a dynamite retail outfit there. It's a win-win for sure. Tyson's super excited about it.
That's great.
They've been doing a lot of work to get it cleaned up so that we can move in, and we've been starting our process of moving in. We did some evaluations of the building, and there were some things that needed to be taken care of, and they're mostly done now. And now we've moved on to the next phase of evaluating, which is literally planning the space. where a cooler is going to go, where are we going to store things, what are we going to do with this, and what physical changes do we need to make to the building. That's what's going on right now. That's great. Yeah, it's terrific. We're excited.
Any questions with the lease at all? Do we need to approve this lease?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Because we want it to be signed and ready to go by March 1st. That's when we're going to take possession.
All right, I'll be in tomorrow.
I'll put a motion to approve the lease agreement.
I would second that.
All right. Any questions or concerns? Craig, did you have anything? Is he still with us?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. There you are.
Who gets the royalties off the t-shirt sales?
He's having a
Yeah, no
clearance
kidding.
sale, didn't he?
No, I'm talking about the future sales.
Oh, that's part of our marketing plan, let me tell you.
Oh, okay.
We better
All right.
have one.
I got one in mind.
We're not using that one, Craig.
Yeah, but there's already one that exists out in Colorado. I just thought you should know that.
I'm not surprised.
Well, yeah, we want to sell liquor. So if it's T-shirts, I'm in. Not to mention your wonderful idea for the revolving beer can sign, which I will not let die. I will make one comment, though. Run this lease through spell check, or Sarah Hamilton may not like you very much.
Does spell check know how to spell her name?
Apparently not. No, actually, it's underlined, so nobody's run this through spell check because there's several catches on there, and Sarah's is one of them. All right, so with that, everyone with favor of this lease? Is that the way to say
Of
that?
the motion, anyway.
With the motion to approve this lease. Ben?
Aye.
Craig?
All right.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye. Yay! Important step forward.
Yeehaw.
All right, council and staff reports. Craig?
Yeah, here, let me get to my, I had a rec park meeting. See if I can find my. Notes here. Well, I gotta go from memory. We had a golf report, basically just summarizing some of the things that they're working on in the kitchen at the golf course to make the kitchen up to grade so that they can bring in alcohol sales next summer. Some work is being done in the kitchen for that, as far as being food prep and what foods we can sell there to qualify us for alcohol sales. The other issue, well, that's one of the issues that they're working on at the golf course. Also, let's see, Dave was talking about reservations for August. They've been coming through the center pretty good. We are booked out already for Fisherman's Picnic, which usually happens pretty quickly. Let's see, what did we talk about there? Trying to find my notes. I had a picture of Oh, and the other issue was the community connection piece of the project at the rec park. We're looking at finalizing that work by March 31st. The Morrison family has agreed to the Stacy Droulard narrative that was created that's going to be mounted on that community connection area. And so we're hoping that all the metal work is done by the 31st of March. So that would be finished. Let's see what else. Oh, then also the master plan that was finished is going to be submitted into the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails online portal, where it'll be viewed by them, hopefully. I don't know what the process is after we submit that, but at least all that work that we did for the master plan will be out there and eligible for review, and maybe some legacy funding, I guess, is what we're trying to accomplish. Then setting up priorities of what things we want in that master plan. What are the important things that we want to try to accomplish right away within that plan. I think that's about all I have for the rec park. Yeah,
All right.
that's it.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I was at the ARDC, the Arrowhead Regional Development Committee meeting. It was actually their annual meeting. So we had elections and approved the budget, and we had a couple of presentations there. And then, so for Cook County, that would be myself and Ginny Storley were re-elected. And that was kind of it. Wasn't a lot of business that day.
Okay. Cool.
Planning Commission, we already went through one of them. There was another.
Yeah. I suppose that's going to come again.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just needed more information on another request for converting above the blue water to a
Oh, yeah.
residential.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you
Yeah,
did have the
it's-
meeting, that was, it was already in your meeting, right?
Yeah, we just,
We
we
didn't-
didn't have, we had some more questions about parking and how many units and what are we talking about exactly.
Yeah.
So Sam wasn't around, so
Yeah.
So it'll come back then?
that's
Oh,
the hope,
okay.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
He knows, he's been asked, he knows what he needs to get us, so.
cool.
Great.
All right.
Yeah.
I mentioned the newer grant program from the University of Minnesota. It's called Empower Small Communities, and we had already, Teresa Bida and I had gone to the opening webinar, and then we had a small group meeting of a few people to figure out potential applications. They were due today. So I filled out an application for help with, which I've asked that the city get everyone's, all property owners' email and cell phone, immediate contact information for all sorts of reasons. And they can do more tactical things like that. So I put a proposal in to have them help us obtain that. And then I did one to help us with the East Bay erosion. Teresa did one for an incubator potential in the business park in the very upper part the EDA has been talking about.
Yep.
And then also for the TAC Harbor development. And did Shane get his in for the EV? Do we know? I didn't have a chance to ask him.
I didn't see him today.
And then did you get yours in for
I
the?
wasn't in at all. No, I haven't done it yet.
Okay. This
I
was
didn't-
your.
I thought we had, they were gonna take them as they came too.
This was the day. Well, double check, but
It's
that's.
too bad, cause I had another idea about one during our conversation tonight. that-
This was, yours was the one they said they would pretty much do if we just turned it in because they had that means for. Okay, so we turned that in. We had our community leadership meeting last Thursday. Michael was there. I pointed out one more time to them that most of the emails and attendance rosters are not current, including our own city council, and they're dated, and I've given them updates. So, but one of the things we did was review the questionnaire set out at the end of December. Is what is the intent of this group? What do we hope to accomplish? What do we want out of these meetings? And we reviewed that. I think the sum total, and you can correct me if I'm off on this, Michael, is basically the same thing it's always been. We'd like these meetings to be a sharing opportunity to hear what the current issues and things going on with other groups like our school systems, our hospital systems, the county, that we don't have a chance to hear about. And then if there are opportunities to get together to solve a problem where we can on the side. And we went through that, and then there was some other topics already on the agenda. And then at the very end, I gave my reminder that the community voice is ready, county community voice is ready to go out again, and remind them all to participate in that. We'd like it out before the March 15th meeting. On March 15th, that meeting is the county is once again hosting a luncheon and afternoon meeting sessions with our state legislators. It's up in Grand Portage. The city has been invited to attend the luncheon, but we are not part of the meeting sessions where they talk about varying issues that they have of interest in the county. So
Why are we not invited?
you can ask the county that. I don't know the answer to that. We were invited after this was put together and organized. Mike and I had a meeting with the Animal Airhead Rescue. They put together an agreement to help move forward getting their new facility put together. What is the city's contribution, what is theirs to get it all in place and up and running. They have an attorney who helped them draft this, and so we met through that. There'll be some fine tuning to it, but basically I think it details what we already knew and expect of our obligations and theirs. So that was nice to see that moving along, and we'll just keep meeting with them and move that along. I was invited to meet with the new executive director for the Lloyd Quaid Johnson Foundation, which I did the other afternoon. Nice conversation. You just wanted to talk about Grand Marais, because obviously that's a major focus of that foundation. And of course he's new, and they're also realigning and readjusting some of their focus and emphasis as well. So it was just a nice opportunity to meet him, and nice conversation. I have had varying emails and interests, not a lot, but some, and it was a year ago actually that the Dark Sky group came to meet with us. So I did send an email out to them and included Jason at the HRA to say, with all these larger potential new projects coming up, maybe this is a time for your group to positively influence those developments, maybe making positive suggestions about what they could do around dark skies with their lighting. It's one thing to say we want you to do this, but it's also helpful to say, provide how you could accomplish that. And so I just wrapping in that in. And, a lot of architects probably know to do that if you just make that a priority. But I did tie those together. Then the final thing is I've been waiting to make sure it was ready, but I had confirmation from our HR consultant that the city administrator's review is summarized and ready to go. And so Mike, of course, will want to have time to look at it, and then the council will as well. So what I was alluding to earlier is we do need to have a special work session, closed session, so that we have a chance as a group to do that. So when we meet together, we're all ready to roll, and we can have a productive conversation and not be looking at it for the first time, trying to digest the material. So I'm going to ask, would that be something you could coordinate, Patrick, to ask times and dates? I don't know if it's enough time to say we meet earlier before the 28th, or if we want to pick a different time, but we'd want to do that. And if you think there's time and you'd like to put in with that the abatement policy, we can, or if you'd like to set that for a separate time. I don't have any real thoughts either way on that, but whatever you want to do. Maybe that's the question. Maybe that's the second question Patrick can kind of send out and see. But this will allow us to stay to that 28th time that we've set for that. That's what I have. I don't think I forgot anything. And then I just was going to ask Mike what updates you have, I was hoping I mean, I have a list, but maybe you can just run off a few and we'll hit them, especially with all the changes going on here.
Yeah, you gave me 3 things on the list. Is your list longer than that?
Yeah.
Oh. Great.
Awesome.
We're working with Molly Larson to help us put together a new name, logo, concept for the liquor store. So that's the start of what you could call a marketing plan anyway, is deciding what we want to call ourselves. That is liquor store staff and some administrative staff working with her on that. We've also begun started to plan out where are we going to try to do advertising and what does it cost and all of that stuff, but I wouldn't call that a marketing plan yet. The folks are awfully excited though about the idea of merchandising on our name. Probably thinking more about our long-term building than our short-term location when it comes to that, but you know, we'll start when we start. It's just we're not going to use the fish or the name over there right away, most likely.
Good idea.
Yeah. If you've been in the garage lately, you've seen our paper pile starting. That's our shred pile that's in there. It's going to grow significantly in the next few weeks, which is good news because every box that's in that pile is a box we're not sticking on a truck driving to the scanner's office somewhere else. Shred is cheapest, scan is next, keep is next in terms of expense. There'll be some that we keep. Then the rest of this building contents is a little trickier. It's full of furniture that quite a bit of it we're not really using right now. And a lot of it that we are using isn't going to come with us. It doesn't have a temporary home, or it's not going to be something we use in the new building. And so we need to find a new home. What we've been doing so far is inviting some local nonprofits to come in and just kind of peruse the merch and see if there's anything in here that's useful for them. So far, a couple of takers, but not a lot. And we're still kind of brainstorming is there a way for us to make a lot of this furniture more broadly accessible, short of giving the public free reign inside of this building, which isn't going to happen. So, or I mean, literally, it might just be, it's going to be in the garage for 2 weeks, but there's more furniture that fits in there. So, it might be it's in the parking lot, or we're going to plan some sort of events to deal with what's left. There's a lot of pieces in here that'll probably be useful to somebody, and there's quite a bit that we're planning on keeping too. Like these, for instance, we're going to bring with. These, on the other hand, not coming with. and these probably, I mean, you look at them and they're really nice tables, but the opportunity cost to acquire them is high, even though the price is right, because they don't break down and they take up space, and you really have to have the right spot for it. If there's a nonprofit out there that doesn't hear from us sometime in the next couple weeks and has a furniture need, give us a call. We've got a lot of very nice office stuff that we've collected over the last 50 years.
Well, there's your Boreal ad. You can. Okay.
And then public restrooms are clearly not going to be open this summer in their current location. And it'll probably be not until April that we close the doors on those. And we are working with G&G Septic on getting some quotes for not just porta potties, but upgraded facilities, you know, trailer type facilities that you might see at an event. And our first concept was, well, we'll just buy one, because we're thinking this is something we'll use long term to replace some of the existing porta potty rentals. But then we have to figure out, well, are we even able to service these? So we're still kind of sorting out, what do we need to have Pete ready to do on a long-term basis, and what are we going to offer to do, what connections need to be made. But the plan is to have something in front of you at your next meeting to look at some ideas about that too, because we want to have this up and ready to go when people start looking for it.
Exactly. When they want to go.
Yeah. So there are ones that are available right now. Like, you know, I was on the phone with Pete today, and if I could say yes, he could get one right now. you know,
Right,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. So I mean, we'll be able to do this. It's just we have to figure out how we're going to operate it, and then after that, we'll have to figure out where. But it'll happen.
County city joint agreements. Do we know where they sit for a future for
Where
us?
did that even end?
Right.
As quickly
We don't
as
have
we
a
can.
follow-up date scheduled right now for that. I think we'll probably have something in front of you at your next meeting too for the street maintenance agreement. Our last meeting really left it with framework of a deal, and there's a document that we've passed around a bit, so we'll just check in a little bit on that. Aaron was the person other than Michael that was in that group. And so
that's right.
it would be helpful to have a second person appointed to that.
Sure.
Would also be helpful to have someone take Aaron's spot on the personnel committee. So if there's somebody that would be willing to do those things.
I've got time to do this.
Which ones?
Both.
Both? Okay.
The personnel committee, how often does it meet and when?
As needed.
Just as needed, okay, yeah. I'm pretty,
And then the animal arrowhead rescue too, it'd be nice to have someone because that'll be taking shape this summer, you know, and coming to life. Getting that all put together. What was the other one you just said?
The
HR and, the
Street maintenance.
street maintenance, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Well, Michael's closing his eyes. He doesn't want
I
us
was
to
just
see us
hoping.
there.
Next time I think we really need somebody, I'll ask again on that. I was actually surprised that we had the last meeting. It was a good one, and it was useful to clarify some stuff, but it was really the kind of reiteration of the things we had said the previous meeting, making sure that we all agreed. So I'm not sure there's a need for someone to meet with them regularly right now, but it'll definitely be something you want to pick next
I wish
meeting.
Tim had
Yeah.
come back. I said, Tim, come back.
Yeah.
Push that.
Okay, so the county administrator hasn't given us any timelines or know that they have that on their agenda at all, or?
Well,
Are they-
when
are
we
they
met
agreements?
last, we talked about that and the need to develop a schedule for the law enforcement agreement, which is the next one we're going to talk about, but we don't have a schedule to develop.
Okay. And so this morning, Patrick had asked, so Chris Levine and Patrick did an interview on the radio to talk about some of these changes coming up, and most importantly, focus on the liquor store because we know it really matters. That said, do we have a larger communication plan for all of these things? I know Patrick mentioned things on the website, but frankly, we have like the worst website ever to find anything. It's the largest complaint. We need a new website, but we'll get on track with that later. And it's no comment if you, I mean, it's just what it is. I'm not here to give you guys a hard time about it. You can always, sites change, whatever. But do we have a larger communication plan to make sure we're reaching audiences in a variety of mediums about how to get a hold of the city and just all the different changes? And is there bigger?
I mean, the plan, the main repository for that information will be the website as like where to go to look for all of the answers. But, you know, as needed, we will push out updates as they make sense on social media, through the newspaper, through the radio, through Boreal, through this meeting, through the weekly updates.
Door.
And
I was going to say
posted on the
some
door.
much larger signage, real big obvious signage what might be good. Well, we can only do it for so long, of course, but at least for the month of March, it might be nice to have
Yeah.
a nice big sign put up. Northern Wilds doesn't do signs anymore, do they? Bummer. They used to be able to do temporary signs. Of course, the liquor store can probably get a lot of free signage. Most of their vendors will create just about anything they want. Because I hate to tell you this, but I answered a lot of questions about how do you get to the lighthouse, and if you didn't give them very explicit directions, I thought they were going to get lost. The concept that they might hit the lake would not go anywhere. So if you don't have some really good signage about this, that people are still gonna not get where this is, or where they've moved to.
It'll be right there.
Yeah, smell the donuts, you're near the liquor. I don't know, something clever. That's where you get a marketing person who's clever to do that. Okay, I think that hit what was on my list.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And let's see, you'll be gone March when? You're out for part of,
The-
and we
the
have to
first
start already
meeting in
look out
March.
into March. First meeting on March?
Yeah, I'll be
Okay.
gone that whole week.
All right, okay.
Hey.
Some more fun?
If I could add,
There's snow.
If there's.
All right.
If I could add one-
Thanks, everybody. This
Wait,
is like a
wait,
super
Patrick
big
has an
night.
addition.
I just want to add one.
Oh, yes.
For City Hall, we're planning to soft close on the 26th. That'll give us the opportunity to deal with it not being in this building while we can still be in the building. If there's any problems we need to work out with people that are too complicated to do over the phone or via email, we still have the opportunity to figure out how to handle that while we can in the building.
Sure. And I'm supposed to assume how you guys all communicate and all of your technology is functioning as you want and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, it would be, we could go on for a few hours about all the things that have gone, that we've done to try and figure out how we're gonna be remote, so.
Sure.
If anybody wants to come and get some details on that, just give us a call and we'll walk you through what we've done.
Only if you're serving lunch at your own house that we get to go to on the day that we're investigating how this is going to work.
Definitely, Mike's Front Yard is on the list of available meeting locations. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody just, so, I'm sorry.
Convenient.
Are we starting our county meetings then in March our meetings at the courthouse in March?
Undecided yet.
Okay, that's a good point to know.
Yeah, even though we won't have our doors open, the building will still be here, all this stuff will still be here, so we're gonna move over there sometime in March, I think, but probably not that first meeting since both Patrick and I are not here.
Okay.
How will we function?
Well.
Okay, thank you.
Late agenda.
Yeah, easy peasy.